Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by my tag team partner, Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
You are my tag team partner.
I would accept that tap.
Yeah.
to come in and defend you in the ring.
I feel like if we lived near each other, you would have to defend me
a
lot because I'm not a big man. You know, you're much bigger than me.
I actually kind of enjoy that.
And you're quite threatening.
That's not really.
You just have to, it's your hands, Paul. You have big hands. Sure. That's why that iPhone 6 Plus is perfect for you.
Right.
You have no problems with that thing, huh?
It's a little big.
It's happening, see? One of my friends, we have so much to get to today, but one of my friends got that phone, and she was listening to this podcast, and you had said, it's okay, it's fine. And I went on this rant that a lot of people don't want the larger iPhone if they're going from the smaller one. So she sent me this email. It's like, oh, you're crazy. I love it. It's coming in tomorrow. I saw it. My friend got it. Whole thing. She got the phone. She's like, oh my God, this thing is gigantic. She actually sent it back and got the 6. It was way too big.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
no, that's definitely right. And as soon as my son got the 6, I was like, oh, I have made a horrible mistake.
Yeah. Would you rather have the 6 now over the 6 Plus?
Yeah, I would pick the 6.
Interesting. I think well, wait a minute. You have that gigantic Windows Phone though, right?
Yep. I think that's too big too.
You think that's too big too? Okay. A lot of stuff to get to today. But before we go into the topic, I want to talk about our friends at Harry's. It's a new advertiser here on the network. What is Harry's, you say? Well, it's quality shaving products for men. Now, I have a serious problem when it comes to shaving. I could only use certain types of razors. I can't use those cheapo razors because it tears my face apart. That's why I have this beard right now, actually, because I have no good razors. My Harry shipment is coming in tomorrow, actually, so I'm going to be using that. But the thing about Harry's is that you don't have to worry about shaving with a dull blade. Sometimes we scrape ourselves, sometimes we cut ourselves. It looks silly when you're walking around with the tissue on there. But razors are also expensive. Sometimes they run up to $4. The thing about Harry's is that they make really high-quality razors in their factory in Germany. It's engineered for sharpness and high performance. No dulling. No more dull blades that suck, pretty much, which is a major problem for a lot of people. Here's their website, actually. You could see the products that they have. They have a whole slew of products. They have a whole group of different type of blades and different type of razors and shaving gels and aftershaves. So it's a full package with them. And they guarantee your satisfaction. If you're unhappy, that's not going to happen. They're guaranteeing it to you. So if you go to Harry's right now, they have some really cool stuff. I'm going to show you I think it's the Winston. The Truman and the Winston. I got the Winston. Well, who would you say was a better leader, Truman or Winston, Paul?
Wow.
It says something.
That's a close call.
Yeah. So they have the Winston there, $25. Plus they have the rechargeable blades, refillable blades. They have the essential products. They have the upgrades. They have the supplies. So they have a lot going on over at Harry's. And I invite you guys to try it out. They have a great deal for our audience. If you use our coupon code, WhatTheTech at checkout, you get $5 off your first purchase. I'm very excited because the holiday season's here, and this is a great gift to give to somebody. And I'm going to be actually ordering a bunch of these to give to a lot of my relatives because we're hairy men in my family, Paul. No pun intended. Our facial hair just grows at a rapid rate. So something like this.
I'm pretty sure I could squeeze out a beard right now if I just
Can you? Let's see. Let's see.
My face hard.
Let's just try. Because this is like a day for me.
just kind of grunt one out.
Just try, because this is like a day and a half.
Yeah.
Harrys.com. They make some phenomenal products. It's actually, their story is fascinating. The way that Harry started is one of their founders was at the drugstore, and he had to wait 10 minutes for them to come and unlock like the good razors that they have. They treat you like a criminal. You have to go and get permission to buy good razors at the drugstore. So by the time he was finished, the thing had cost him a ton of money, and he decided, there has to be a better way to do this, and he created Harry's. It's a great story and a great company. Harrys.com. Use coupon code WhatTheTech at checkout and get $5 off your purchase. I want to thank Harry's for supporting What the Tech. You know what else, Paul, is going on? I don't know what buttons I'm hitting. So I want to talk a little bit about Windows 8 before we go into a lot of the other stuff happening. HTC had an announcement. Apple has a big announcement next week. But I kind of wanted to get your opinion on Windows 10 after having it for a week. Are you using it as your full machine now? Or is it your everyday computer? Or is it still a test bed for you?
No, I'm using it everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yep.
Tell me, what do you see? Like, any complaints?
No, I mean, the thing, but, I should provide the caveat that I fall into that majority of people who uses Windows like a computer, with a keyboard and a mouse, almost exclusively. And in this initial build, it's aimed at that. It's aimed at people who are upgrading from Windows 7, because that's basically the only choice there, or they're upgrading from Windows 8, and that's the type of experience you're looking for, is that desktop environment. And so the funny thing is, I wasn't using a start menu replacement, but I was already using that modern mix utility from StarDock.
Yeah.
In fact, I didn't buy this one. I was just testing it, but they have a utility that adds, I can't find the name of it, sorry, but they have a utility that adds the window shadow kind of effect, and
behind the actual window, so it
yeah, which is how it used to look in Windows 7. So the funny thing is, for me, going from that to the Windows 10 technical preview, it's like almost a non-event. I mean, it's a very seamless experience. I was already kind of experiencing Windows in this way, and so the only thing it really, obviously, added the start menu, but I don't go to start. I pin everything I want to the taskbar. I don't really care about that. It added a couple buttons to the taskbar. It added multiple desktop functionality, which I'm never going to use anyway. And so for me, it's full steam ahead. It was really just kind of a seamless step forward.
I'm curious, what if you weren't doing you hadn't modified Windows, would it have been a different experience for you to go right into it?
Well, I guess the thing you got to remember is that I don't remember the exact numbers, but the vast majority of people using Windows, a modern version of Windows, say using Windows 7, and so this presents a very seamless update to that
transition for them.
The thing that the Windows 10 technical preview would provide to Windows 8 users, Windows 8.1, whatever version, is, well, the start screen. I think that would be a fairly profound change. I mean, if you were actually using the start screen, especially on a regular computer, that's going to be a very different experience. Although, by the way, if you upgrade, it will retain what you had. And so when you upgrade from Windows 8, it actually puts the start screen there and not the start menu. So you have to go in and change that if you want to use the start menu, which is a little strange.
So if I'm doing it from Windows 7,
you'll get the start menu.
You'll get the start menu from Windows 7.
Yeah. I mean, they respect the system you're using, so they try to retain the settings where possible. But, I think the biggest thing, and I do really think this is going to be a profound change, is that when you can run these Metro apps, these modern apps, in a floating window next to other apps, web apps, desktop apps, and so forth, that becomes a viable platform, And one thing I've been doing, I'm not actually doing it on my desktop here, but on the Surface, on the Aspire, on the MacBook Air, where I put it on under Boot Camp, I'm starting to use those modern apps instead of the web apps I used to use. So for calendar and email, for example, I actually use the built-in apps now, and you pin them to the taskbar and you use those instead of web apps. And I still use some web apps for some things, collecting news and so forth, but it just kind of opens it up to this new usage, now that they work the way you expect them to work for the most part. I mean, you can't fully resize them in every single dimension that you may want because they're not really designed that way yet. But just the ability to have multiple things on the screen. It's like, it's Windows. It's Windows as we've always understood it. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, they should have just shipped this as Windows 8. And, the truth is they were never going to ship this as Windows 8.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is this the proper transition? I mean, we know that they weren't going to ship this because they had a different vision at that point. But would this have been the proper transition to the next operating system, the next version of Windows, rather than having Windows 8, 8.1, and then this?
Well, I mean, in a world in which we're rewriting history, maybe. But I mean, the thing is, Windows 8 was the step to the next OS. I mean, they were going to de-emphasize and then get rid of the desktop, and they're still going to do that on certain versions of Windows, of course.
Which they
I mean,
should. I mean, on the tablet, there's no reason why you should have the desktop, really.
yeah. Well, the reason you have it today is there's just too much functionality there that doesn't exist on the other side.
Yeah.
But that's changing and will continue to change.
Are they still bringing it over? A lot of the set, like when you talk functionality, there's core functionality, and then there's just the basic settings that are lacking in the modern UI where they have it in the desktop. Are they is that still their plan to slowly bring everything over and to kind of split these two?
You know what? That's not clear. So I actually don't foresee a time anytime soon where they would be able to bring over everything. And we'll see how they handle that. But because you just wouldn't need everything. I mean, it's possible that some of those control panel settings type things are not applicable to a tablet or a phone anyway, so we'll see. But and I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do it. See, that's the thing that's coming in a future update. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. So I can only speculate how they're going to handle it.
I mean, it's pretty, right? Desktop looks nice. I mean, the problem previously was that they left desktop the way it was and they didn't really do anything to change desktop. But this kind of looks like that again. 2-3 years ago, you predicted this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to say, and I still can't find that image, Paul. If you have it somewhere on the server, I love it.
Yeah.
Paul,
okay. Well, okay, but whatever. I mean, the confronted by what Windows 8 looked like, I sort of thought, why can't it just be like this?
And it's kind of this.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, at the time, Microsoft said to me that there were valid reasons why these apps had to run full screen. That it wasn't just about making it good for tablets. It was about security and reliability and all kinds of other things. And I actually think a lot of that is baloney, and proven by the fact that they're not doing it anymore. So, whatever. I mean, I think the central thing here is that Windows has long supported multiple runtime engines. Back in the early days, you could run POSIX or POSIX, however you say that, Unix style apps. Not that anyone ever did it. The original versions of Windows were designed to, or were supposed to be designed so you could swap out like an OS2 personality and a Windows personality, and they never really went down that path for various reasons. But, this was always kind of a part of Windows. It was, today we have Win32 apps, .NET apps, Windows Presentation Foundation apps, which are .NET type apps, web apps, Adobe Air apps, Java apps, these things all run side by side on the Windows desktop. And so with Windows 10, they've kind of removed that arbitrary division between modern mobile apps and the desktop, and now they can just run on the desktop, which is what people expect.
So I got an email after our show last week, and because we were discussing, is the evolution of Windows killing Win32 applications and going to this new format for them, a universal application. And I started thinking, what if you have two programs? You have Skype, which they have the universal Skype app, and then you have the Win32, traditional Windows application. What is the performance going to be if you compare those two? Are you going to get better performance overall with the universal app, or are you going to get better performance from
I'm not sure performance is the right qualifier, the right thing to think of. I mean, I think what they're more concerned about is reliability, resiliency. That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, overall, is it going to be a better application to run?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the way I would say it is overall, the modern version, assuming it is functionally equivalent or nearly enough so, will always be the better app. And for a variety of reasons. It benefits from the modern platform and the features of the modern platform, the sandboxing, the fact that it cannot trash memory in the OS or in other applications. It has a smaller attack surface, so it's safer. It runs consistently across multiple platforms. It allows you to create a single app that could run potentially on Xbox One, on Windows PCs and tablets, and on phones. And so it's the better app, better.
Yeah.
Air quote better. Right now, Skype in particular are racing to make the modern version of their app better so that it can replace the desktop version. But when you think about like Windows going forward, and people are saying, oh, they're not getting rid of the desktop now, and everything's changed. It's like, not exactly. I mean, when you think about apps like Internet Explorer and Skype, that are included with the operating system, and it's like, well, which one of these, if we're only going to make one, which is the one that makes the most sense? The answer is always the modern version, because it runs everywhere. But why would you want to maintain different versions of this application?
It's one universal application. Yeah, it's a strange crossroads that we're at.
Yeah.
Have you any bugs? Have you stumbled upon any kind of glitches or bugs in your day-to-day use?
Nothing major. I have a weird display glitch. Which one is it on? I think it's on the MacBook Air, actually. The truth is, I've always had little weird things on the MacBook Air with Windows anyway, and I run that third-party trackpad driver, which is wonderful because it makes an unusable trackpad usable, but it's also a little buggy, and I get bugs related to that have nothing to do with Windows 10. But no, I mean, honestly, on most machines, it's really seamless. Like I said, it's been a very easy transition.
Okay, here's my other question for you. Driver support. For if it works on 8.1, it should work on 10? There should not be any...
I don't remember the version number off the top of my head, but I think it's 6.4, so... the version 8.1 would have been 6.3, 8.0 would have been 6.1 if I'm getting this right. I don't remember how it worked. It's in the same ballpark for that reason, for version checking and so forth.
Okay, so you're not going to have any kind of bugginess.
I haven't. I mean, I've loaded drivers regularly. The whole boot camp suite of drivers. You would think that would be particularly sensitive because Apple's drivers are so terrible. All of them loaded without problems. I have a perfectly clean device manager on the MacBook Air, no problems at all. So, well, beyond the normal MacBook Air problems. Yeah.
The overall UI, is this going to change? Other than I know the charms bar is going away, but overall UI, are they saying, well, this is it, this is what it looks like? Are they going to be?
No, this is more coming. I mean, most of what we're seeing is targeting that desktop environment, and the charms is kind of in a weird state of flux. Like, it's actually still there, but it's hard to get to if you have a mouse, for example. The switcher UI from Windows 8 is gone. It's replaced by the standard kind of Alt plus, I guess actually it's Win key plus Tab UI, whatever, the task view interface. But, as far as using apps goes, I mean, you still swipe up from the top or up from the bottom to make the app bars come up. You can still right-click in the window to make those app bars come up if you're using a mouse. That stuff works the same way. So... we'll see. It's going to change, but yeah.
Performance overall. Have you noticed any kind of difference?
I mean, no.
Nothing.
No.
Okay. Because I'm going to install this on a ThinkPad, on a dual core ThinkPad. It's a couple of years old.
Yeah.
So would you say that that's a good test machine for me to put on, or should I try to put it on something a little
What's the model number?
I think it's the ThinkPad
T40. What is
no, yeah, it might be the T40 actually.
it?
Yeah, let me see. ThinkPad T40 or the R40.
R40, yeah.
It could be an R40 or a T. I'm not too sure.
I'm sure it's fine. That'll be fine.
Yeah.
The low. Well, actually, I did put it on a really low end tablet too. But the lowliest computer that I actually use it on is that Acer Aspire E15 that I bought, the $200 computer. And that computer has performance challenges. I mean, it's a low end computer. It's in fact, it's so performance challenged. One of the things you can't do is mirror cast the display to a 1080p HDR.
Oh, it doesn't do it.
You can't. So if you want to do like Netflix, for example, over Miracast, it's not fast enough for that. But as far as using the actual screen, which is 1366 by probably 768 or whatever, it's fine. I didn't notice any difference, plus or minus, with regards to performance. But it can handle it. It was running Windows 8 before. It's fine. I think you'll be okay on like an R40 or whatever that is.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look at it. I may do that tonight, actually.
It's always nice to run it on a real computer if you can.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like when I do these tests, even Windows 8, like I never had it on like a real computer. I had it on my lower end machine, and I used it on that, and it was miserable because the trackpad was awful on that thing, and it was so touch based. I just had an awful experience with it, and I just never put it on my desktop because I didn't need to at that point. But I think with this one, it will be the one that I jump to immediately. I'm kind of excited about it, Paul. I don't know what to say.
It's good. I mean,
yeah.
honestly, I from the perspective of a lot of people, this cures a lot of ills, and I think that's important. If you weren't experiencing those problems before, you'll kind of look at this and say, "Oh, it's like a superset of Windows 7. Nice, it's what an upgrade should be." For me, it was kind of a lateral move because, like I said, I mean, I was already using the Windows 8 desktop, and so moving over to this was just it was nothing. It was so easy.
I saw a blog post. They're like, want to make Windows 7 look like Windows 10? Install
Yeah.
this theme, and it's like this theme pack. What was it? Rainmaker
Sure.
used to make those, and it kind of makes it look like when I'm like, why would you do that?
Eh,
Just why would you do that? Paul, I want to talk to you about HP and the story about them splitting the company into two companies.
The boring company and the bankrupt company.
Yeah, boring company bank. I think when we first started doing the podcast together, this was one of the main stories that they were going to leave the PC business.
Yeah, their former CEO is a piece of work, as we say. And I the way I remember it, I assumed I had written about this. I went to look it up, and I actually hadn't written a news story about it. I wrote a follow up to it sometime later, but at the time it was Leo Apotheker, I think was how you say his name, and he was only CEO of HP for a year, and this is one of the reasons. And I believe it was during a conference call with press and analysts or financial analysts where he said, one of the things we're kind of considering is whether we should spin off or get rid of the PC business. And of course, they were not ready to do that or discuss it. And the board of directors got a little upset with him, and that was the end of him. When Meg Whitman came on board as an outsider, which I think is important for HP, just like having a non-founder or non-early employee of Microsoft, I should say, as CEO is important there. You can kind of approach the problems the company has from a better perspective. And at the time, she said that HP's size made keeping the PC business make sense because they had purchasing power across all of their divisions and so forth. And I'm not a business person, but I can, that sounds reasonable, whatever. But this market moves really quick, and HP, which is a company over twice the size of Microsoft, has responded even more slowly to the changes that are sweeping this industry. They have if you accept that we're in a mobile first, cloud first kind of world, like Microsoft says, they have no mobile strategy at all.
Absolutely.
Beyond the fact
they never have.
Well, they've tried. They've made tablets. Remember, they bought WebOS. They tried. But they've always failed. I mean, and they failed going back years. This was the company that under Carly Fiorina licensed the iPod and put out an HP iPod.
They did.
10 years ago or whatever. I mean, really silly.
So what were they doing? I forgot about that. I remember the licensed iPod. Was it a different looking iPod or it just looked like it?
It just said it had the HP and the Apple logo on the back. That was the only difference.
That was the only, and you would exclusively buy this at HP.
Yeah, it wasn't even a different color. In fact, when they made the announcement, Carly Fiorina had held up a light blue iPod, if I'm not mistaken. Apple didn't make colored iPods at the time. And everyone thought, well, that's kind of cool to have a different color. But then when it came out, it was just exactly the same.
So they just,
and I think it was back in the black and white iPod days.
What was their strategy with that? Like, why?
They were failing in digital devices, and she was like, "I'm going to be decisive. Everyone likes iPods. We're going to get an iPod."
But it wasn't an HP. It just had the HP logo. You sold an iPod in your store.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, HP has been attempting to do this for a while. You're right. Their mobile strategy has always failed. They've never done well. WebOS could have been something, but it was a couple years too late.
They've made a lot of kind of convergence products that people forget about that makes sense for a company like HP, because HP always had like a server division. They had like the personal products group, whatever they called it, the products for consumers and so forth. They made PCs for both sides, obviously. But this is the company that like really pushed media center PCs with Microsoft, pushed Windows home servers, that kind of thing. And for those kind of products, they, not so much the media centers, but the home servers were fantastic, and the guys that did that stuff were great. I mean, they had a great little thing going there, but there's no real market for that stuff. So they've never really, by the way, for whatever it's worth, their laptop products, they are quite good. I use an HP desktop, which I think is fantastic. They make good computers,
So what is
But
it? Is it the fact that they didn't evolve their consumer market with, because now, I mean, you go back
well,
15 years ago, you bought a Dell or HP or Gateway. Now you have Asus, Acer. There's so many players in the game where the competition is a lot more aggressive.
but it's also a smaller pond. I mean, or a smaller part of the pond. The bigger devices are smartphones and tablets, and they don't have one of those.
Yeah.
They don't have smartphones or tablets, and so they're really missing the boat. And whatever. So the new HP is split. We don't know exactly, but assuming they split in half, both of those companies will be the size of Microsoft, both from an employee size and from a revenue perspective, at least initially.
So the enterprise side, I'm assuming they're going to deal with, software, obviously.
Yeah,
And
cloud services,
cloud
which is, by the way,
services.
another area they've lagged horribly in.
And are they
You
going to
know,
deal with towers? I mean, servers as well, and storage? I mean,
I actually don't know. I assume the
yeah.
server part is going to the enterprise company, but I don't.
And they're still selling computers, I'm guessing, on the enterprise side.
I don't think so. I think those are going to the other side. I'm not really sure. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I don't know. Like the business. Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Actually, somebody joked. Years ago, Compaq actually also, if I'm not mistaken, under Carly Fiorina, HP purchased Compaq, right, for some ungodly sum of money at the time, um, which didn't make sense to anybody because these product lines were not complementary. It was basically Compaq was selling these computers that were just like HP's computers. I mean, there was no way to really mesh them. And they probably almost certainly still use the Compaq name for whatever reason. For a while there, they were like Ford and Mercury, where they would have like two basic versions of the same thing in
Same
different
exact
languages.
thing. Yeah.
So stupid. But when you think about this company breaking up now and the two resulting companies, one of them is IBM, right? Server services, enterprise services, essentially, enterprise. And the other one is Compaq.
Yeah.
like they just recreated Compaq, which is, whatever. They make good computers, and obviously their printers do well. Um,
I mean, I guess
there's
this now solidifies that they are not going. Their PC market is not going away. They're not killing it off. They're just splitting the company
but
into
they
two.
need plans to expand on it. I mean, they
Yeah.
need some kind of a smartphone strategy that makes sense. They need a tablet strategy that makes sense.
How do you do that? I mean, that's you brought up an interesting thing. How do you how do you create a strategy in a market, A, for the PC that's dying, two, in the tablet market, which we know there are only a couple dominant players and everybody else is just scrambling, and it may be too late for them to get into the phone market.
Yeah, well, that's what they
So,
said about Microsoft
yeah,
four and a
but you
half
know
years
what?
ago.
Yeah, but Microsoft created the brand, right? Like they created their own brand to get into the phone
Yeah,
market, and their success was from Nokia, which was a successful brand for many years, and in Europe they were a successful brand even at that current time. So
right.
if you're HP, do you just create an HP phone and put Android on it and sell that? I mean, what do you?
I mean, in the past, they used to do it with the Windows mobile phones,
Yeah,
right?
and they did, and they tried it with the Palm Pre.
Yeah, and that's a shame because that system was technically elegant and had some beautiful things to it. And if someone had really kept on it, someone big, it could have. There's no reason why it couldn't be a viable alternative to any of the major smartphone platforms. It was ahead of its time. But every day that goes by, every year that goes by, that becomes less and
Older.
less true.
Well, I mean, their strategy at one point was that they were going to start installing WebOS on their desktops, and you would have the choice. It would be dual
Yep.
booted. You could dual boot either in WebOS or on, or Windows. And it was like 9 days. Like that's what their vision was. And then the following week, they're like, you know what? We're killing this thing. Forget it. And then LG bought it. And they haven't done anything with it. They're putting it
No,
on the
LG
TV.
is not, yeah, and they're a longtime phone maker, also a former Windows Mobile licensee, by the way, and Windows Phone actually. Um, I don't know. I mean, obviously, maybe not obviously, but it seems like HP Inc. or whichever company would be doing this would choose between Windows Phone and Android. Maybe do some of both. They could use the same phone designs now. That's very easy. I don't know. There's no viable scheme that makes sense. I mean, other than they continue trading off of their name, I guess, and they try to sell these things to people that buy their computers. Which, by the way, computers aren't. It's not that computers are dying. I mean, computers are In fact, sales of computers this past quarter were basically flat. I think they were only down 1.7%. So, at some point that levels off. It's still the smallest portion of the personal computing market, but it's still, 300 million units a year or whatever.
I mean, I guess people are just not buying desktops.
Yeah, but HP already they make great laptops right now. In fact, if you look at their stuff, it's really not horrible. They make nice 2-in-1s, nice laptops. They make nice systems. So whatever, but I mean, they need to expand into phones and tablets, and if they're going to continue to be a player in this space, otherwise they're just relegating themselves to the business market, which is fine, but they need to figure out some kind of a system where there's growth occurring, not just maintaining.
James in Germany in the chat says, I worked at Compaq headquarters when the takeover happened. Compaq was a great company. Read the book Open if you get a chance. Open?
Oh, I did. This is by the founder of Compaq, one of the founders, Rod Cannon.
Yes, yeah. That's him. Yeah.
It's a great book. That just came out this year. In fact, there's an amazing tidbit of information in that book that had never been revealed before, which is that in the early days of MS-DOS licensing, Microsoft would license MS-DOS separately to each company because there were all these PC-compatible companies popping up everywhere. And it was up to those companies to modify the code of MS-DOS so that it would run properly on their system, meaning that it would run the applications that people wanted to run. And so everyone kind of did their own thing. And everyone was only partially compatible with the IBM PC. So what Compaq did was they said, we're going to be 100% compatible. That's the deal. And then, of course, they're going to sell computers that are more powerful, faster, et cetera, and less expensive than IBM computers, which is how they became very successful in the early days, the first successful clone company. So at some point, MS-DOS became like this really big thing. And so Microsoft was like, we got to sell this thing at retail and we can sell it to users, but we're going to have to do this compatibility work. And they knew that Compaq had already done it. And so they went to Compaq and they said, hey, can we license MS-DOS from you? And Microsoft actually licensed its own product back from Compaq.
Oh, that's such a great story.
So they could get MS-DOS out to more people.
That's actually
because they had already done the work.
Yeah, that's a great story. I had no idea.
Yeah, incredible. No, I didn't. No one did. It was a secret. Yeah.
Things like that will never happen now.
And by the way, Compaq is the inspiration, if you will, for the company that's in that *Halt and Catch Fire* TV show. That's really a veiled reference to Compaq.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's in Texas. I mean, they actually mentioned Compaq once or twice, but it's Compaq. It's the Compaq story basically, but with a Steve Jobs-like guy. And
so I was watching. I want to talk about the Apple event, but you kind of reminded me. I was watching that new show on ABC, How to Get Away with Murder.
Okay.
And it's written by the same person that wrote Scandal, which is actually a really good show. And so she's a college professor, but she's also a lawyer, and she's teaching this class on committing the perfect crime. And they pan to the entire classroom in their pilot, and you look at all the computers. And Jess goes, well, that's BS. I'm like, why? She goes, there's not one Mac.
Oh, wow.
What kind of classroom is that with not one Apple laptop?
So in other words, some PC maker did an exclusive licensing thing or something.
It's not even, no. It was, you could tell that it's a pilot because they weren't even real laptops.
Oh, they were just
like crazy. Like one had like a glowing light to kind of represent it was an Apple, but it wasn't. They were just like flimsy plastic pieces. And she goes, at least had like one or two in there. Like maybe someone should have a tablet. Like making
just have people bring their own devices. It would just be a more realistic representation of what's out there.
It was all like a line of black, laptops with like a glowing light in the middle. I forgot what TV show was that had the Microsoft logo.
Yeah,
and it was glowing. It was a couple of years ago. And all the computers were like Apple clone Microsoft lap computers.
And everyone was like, oh, well, where's that computer? I want it. And why doesn't the Surface have that on it?
Yeah. Why?
I don't know.
Talking about Apple. Apple has an event scheduled October 16th, which is a Thursday, which is a little weird because they never do it on Thursdays. They do it on Tuesdays. So that kind of messes up my schedule.
Yeah.
Is it? Let me just make sure. Yeah, it's a Thursday, the 16th. Some of the rumors. So obviously we're going to get a new iPad.
Let me blow your mind. It's going to have that Touch ID on it, and it's going to look exactly the way you think it's going to look.
They said it's going to be a little bit thinner. The thing is already super thin.
Yep. Neat.
You know what I want to see? I want to see those YouTube videos where people are bending this thing.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Yeah, do they bend?
Do they bend? Do the iPads bend?
Let's see.
Let's see, Paul. Bend your iPad. Let's see.
I don't want to do that. That's unnatural.
They're also saying
it's just solid. It's not like
no.
It's not like you start bending. You start pressing it. Like, wow, I could snap this thing in half. It's like a twig.
The thing is a solid piece of hardware.
Right.
Also, the rumors for a possible new iMac, new MacBooks, new MacBook Airs. I'm hoping there's a new MacBook Pro.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is not a unique thought. Just like adding Touch ID to an iPad is not a unique thought. But I was looking down at my MacBook Air the other day, and I was thinking to myself, it would be nice to have this on a Mac, on any computer. Obviously Lenovo and other companies build these fingerprint scanners into them, but the way that the Touch ID works, we literally just kind of press your finger on it, is so convenient and so wonderful. Wouldn't it be awesome to log into your computer that way? And if you look at a MacBook of any kind, there's probably just enough space between the keyboard and the edge of the bezel of the machine or whatever, where you could kind of picture it being there.
Yeah, you put
no
your
one
finger
has
there.
heard anything about them doing this, but and I'm not saying they are. I don't know anything about it, but it just seems like they should do that. That would be so cool. People would love
that. There's a Vietnamese blogger that's leaking iPad Air 2 images.
Yeah, and let me guess. It looks exactly like an iPad Air, except it has a Touch ID on it.
Yeah, and it's a little bit thinner chassis, Touch ID, missing mute switch. That's the only difference. But here's my problem with getting a new laptop. I need to get a new MacBook. This thing is a 2011. I'm having a lot of problems with it at this point. I can't do some of the video stuff I want to do. It's run its course. But I can't get one until Apple gets their act together and gets rid of this ridiculous bezel on this thing. Number one. Number two.
What thing? Which one?
The screen, the bezel. It's a gigantic.
You're talking about the MacBook.
The MacBook, yeah.
Okay, yes.
They thinned it out a little bit, but it's still silly. It's gigantic, the thing. And the other thing.
Really burned by the bezel.
I really am. And the stupid display size on this one that I have. It's so ridiculous.
Right.
But QNX in our chat room says, I doubt we're going to get a new MacBook until Broadwell, which is probably right about that.
They did a minor refresh to the MacBook Air this spring, which I only know because I bought one. But it's not a Retina display. That's the obvious thing to do there. And these Pro devices, everyone thought they were going to come out with a 15-inch MacBook Air a couple of years ago, and they came out with this 15-inch MacBook Pro Retina thing. Those could get significantly thinner. Those are not thin devices.
I remember reading a couple months ago that Intel was getting ready to ship, I think, 14 nanometer Broadwell chips for the holiday season.
Okay.
So
it seems like Apple would maybe have first pass at that.
Yeah. That would be great because that's a very small chipset. And with the 14 nanometer, are they going fanless with them? I don't know if the 14
I believe fanless is a particular version of the chips, not across the board. I don't think you could just go fanless. I think you need to have I think they're calling it Core M.
Yeah, the Core M's. Yeah, those are the fan. But
I don't believe it's a mainstream Broadwell anything. I think it's a special. Isn't that like 11? I don't remember the.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the article here. It says because the new 14 nanometer Broadwell Core M is fanless, small, and according to Intel, the most effective version. So
you're not going to see that in a MacBook Pro.
No, you'll see it in a MacBook Air.
Yeah. Like a fanless MacBook Air right there. That's actually, in some ways, that's more interesting than going high res.
I would take that, honestly.
Yeah. Not that the fan on this thing really kicks in all that often.
Oh my God, mine is like it's like a jet blasting off. It's insane. It's the most insane thing here.
My Surface is like that. In fact, I'm afraid to even look at it because it will notice I'm looking and start blowing air out of its fan.
That's the most disappointing thing about the Surface for me, that it is not fanless.
This is basic physics. they've gotten this thing down to a super thin enclosure, and they have a ginormous fan that, you know, hopefully works as quietly as it can. But, you know, sometimes it just kicks on. There's nothing you can do about it. It's a full featured Haswell processor in there, you know.
I mean, I guess with the next, you know,
We'll
hopefully
get there.
the Surface 4 or 5 will be able to do fanless. I think the fanless thing is going to be the big thing with some of these lower end computers.
Yes.
Because if you think about it, like
That's
right
going to
now,
be interesting. That's
Yeah.
the original. That's the initial MacBook Air trade-off. You know, it's not going to be as powerful as your desktop computer or your big laptop, but super portable, and in this case, fanless, meaning, you know,
and the battery life, even more battery life.
battery life even better. I mean, we probably, you know, a CPU heating up and having to be cooled by a fan is probably the single worst thing you can do to a battery.
I would imagine. I don't know about the MacBooks. I don't know what kind of performance you'll get on the MacBooks and you know, the MacBook Air, what kind of chips that they're going to put in this thing. But I would imagine for the holiday season, if they start shipping these off, did they say 2014 for the Broadwell, or are they saying 2015 for these?
I thought it was 2014, but
I thought so too.
Really, not very
But
good.
I'll give you an example. This laptop
No,
here,
it is this year. I know there are Windows devices.
I don't know anything that's out right now with it.
No, but these are coming anytime soon. I just saw something about this.
I would imagine that for the holiday
October is
season. This is
October.
October.
It is October. Yeah.
Okay, so
14.
holiday season. Perfect. Yeah, so maybe we'll get a new MacBook Air.
It makes plenty of sense.
Yeah.
It's October, so yeah.
So the event is going to be held October 16th. Yeah, you know what? I think it is a Mac event because there's the Apple logo there. As opposed to having some weird thing. I think it's going to be an overall Mac announcement because they're also announcing they're probably going to release Yosemite as well on that day.
Yep. Yeah, and that's right. They've already finalized that. So
yeah, I just got the final beta of that.
Yeah,
and it's pretty solid. I mean, it's good. It's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like a Mac. So.
Yeah. I did install it as well. I don't really. I mean, I don't use the Mac that much, so it's visually it's a little different. Obviously, you've got the colors or the patterns or whatever of the background are fading through certain parts of the UI now in ways they didn't used to.
It's like you're running Tiger with the little bar on the bottom.
It is. You know what? Yeah, but it is more elegant. I mean, it's nice. There's some stuff in there I really do need to test. I'm not sure if I'm getting this right, but I think it's like the coherence features. Is that what they're called? The, you know, like your phone rings and you can continue the call on your Mac.
I don't know if that's working yet. Is that working?
I've never even looked at it. I gotta look at that.
Yeah,
stuff.
like I don't know anybody that's doing that. And I don't know if it's a functional. It may be functional right now.
Coherence, is that the right term?
Coherent? Like I am not very coherent.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like I've already said, the Mac OS doesn't really do anything for me. The icons are nice.
No, it's a fine op. It's fine.
Connected like never before.
It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Did you watch any of the HTC stuff that was announced?
No.
So they announced two products that kind of stood out for me. One is the Re camera. I'm going to show you this thing, Paul.
Yes. Yeah. Let me see this.
Oh, let's look at this thing.
Okay, that's ridiculous.
That is the camera. It's 100.
Is it also a flashlight?
No.
Okay.
No.
Is it also a periscope?
It looks like a periscope, actually.
Is it a thermos, Andrew? What am I looking at?
It's waterproof, and it's $200, and it's competing with the GoPro.
Okay, I don't understand why. I don't get it.
I guess their point is like this is the GoPro for the average person. So you don't.
Why does an average person need GoPro?
I want to see
it's
people
smaller than I thought it was. Okay,
yeah, it's tiny.
Does it charge a USB device?
Yeah, it has a 6,000 milliamp battery inside, so you can charge all your devices.
This thing looks perfect, except it also apparently has a camera on it for some reason. What? What? I don't get it.
I can't wait till I go skiing and you're going to see all these doofuses with this thing strapped on their head.
Based on what I saw last year skiing, that's already happened.
Yeah, I mean, at least that one looks like a camera. This is going to look ridiculous on your head.
people are doing.
They also announced a mid-range phone that has a front and rear-facing 13-megapixel camera.
Yeah, selfie camera.
A selfie camera. I think that's brilliant. I think that's great.
That's a fine idea. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's enough.
I will
for
never
someone...
be comfortable with nor understand people's fascination with taking photos of themselves. I see people doing this all the time, everywhere. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But they do it.
Do your kids do it?
No. Oh, no.
It's forbidden?
Everyone. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said little kids did it.
No, do your kids do it?
Oh, you know what? I've never witnessed that, but they must, right? I mean, they're human beings. I don't know. They must.
I mean, I think that's a great idea because they had a lot of success with that M8, the HTC One M8 that had that really good front-facing camera. It did some like weird processing to it, and that's what made it decent. And I guess they noticed that, wow, okay, this is pretty cool. People are actually talking about the front-facing camera. Let's strap on a 13-megapixel front-facing camera, and it has a flash on the front, and sell this. I think this is going to be a pretty decent seller for a lot of people.
Huh.
I could see them actually being very successful with this. This may be their niche, Paul. We were talking about this a while ago and how everybody's selling the same phone. Like every Android phone is the same. Like I have an LG G2, and then someone has a Samsung S5. Then you have the G3, and then you have the HTC One. They're all essentially the same thing. Like one is not better than the other. It just comes down to, like, oh, wow, I could get my heart rate. I could get my, on the S5 if it works. It's all pretty much the same. So what's making you stand out above the other ones? Having a 13-megapixel camera in the front, in my opinion, is a huge way to stand out because now if you take a lot of front-facing camera shots, you're going to buy it. I mean,
I have no problem with it. It's not for me, but fine.
I think about that. Like, how do people, and you tell me what you think of this. How do people, like, if I need a new phone, right? Like, I'm going into the store and I need a new phone. My contract is over. There's all these phones in front of me. There's an S5, there's an LG G3, there's the HTC One M8, and every other mid-range phone. How do I determine which one is the one for me?
Actually, this is a problem because what HTC is doing right now with this kind of selfie camera, whatever it's called, selfie phone, is the same thing actually Microsoft / Nokia is doing, right? So they have a 730, which is a selfie phone, where they have a really, I don't think it's 13 megapixels, but whatever the front is, maybe whatever it is, doesn't matter. Same basic design. And it has, a wider field of vision and so forth. It's designed for selfies. It's nice. And so on that phone, that camera on the front is the best front camera that they make, but it's not the best back camera they make. And they're coming out with an 830, which is a superior back camera. It's not as good as that really high-end Lumias, but really nice. And obviously they have the high-end, 1520 Icon 930, whatever. There is no one device that has the best camera everywhere. And that's kind of weird to me. I mean, when I looked at the 730, 735, and the 830, I thought, why don't they just have one that has the awesome front camera and the awesome back camera? And so HTC is kind of doing that, but it's interesting because that mid-range camera, what's it called, by the way?
The Desire Eye.
Okay. So,
but not like Eye.
Appears to have a better camera on the back than the HTC One M8 as well, right?
But it's not a flagship phone either.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So in other words, HTC makes this flagship metal. I think it's aluminum device. It's beautiful to look at. It's got a really crappy camera, but whatever. But then they have this kind of low-end cheap plastic thing that comes in different colors, and it has better cameras than the high-end. It's like I don't understand. I don't mind differentiation, but it seems almost arbitrary. Why would the low-end one have the better camera? And why would the high-end one not have the nice camera that's in the low-end one?
So The Verge did a review, and they say the Eye doesn't take as good selfies as the iPhone 6 in low light.
Okay.
So
whatever.
But I'm talking about the market. I'm not actually talking about the actual performance of this camera. I haven't seen the front-facing shots, but
the actuality of it doesn't matter. The point you were saying, to your point. I mean, you walk in, you're like, hey, I had an HTC One, the original version. It's a couple years later now. What can I get? It's like, well, here are the phones. If you want to do selfies, there's this one, but it's like, oh, okay. But the phone I had before was like aluminum, and now
Yeah.
this thing is plastic. And so that seems like kind of a downgrade. I mean, do you have an aluminum phone? I do, but
Not
it's
as
got a
good.
garbagey camera in it for some reason.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how normal people make these
I don't know
decisions.
either. Like you know what I think most people do? You either go and buy the most expensive phone that they have because that's the best one in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Like there's that group. They're like, okay, what's the best phone you have? Okay, it's a Samsung S5. Done deal. Finished. Buying
It's
it.
going to depend on who you talk to, too.
Yeah, or depending on who you talk to. Like I think the LG G3 is a better phone than the
What
S5
about
in some ways.
a Moto X, right? Which you probably couldn't find in a wireless carrier anyway. That a lot of people feel like this is the single greatest Android phone you can buy right now.
And you know what's amazing about that phone? When it got released, Motorola pretty much said, like, this isn't a flagship phone. It's a mid-range phone. It's not the highest spec one.
It
but
seems like pretty awesome to me. You can put wood on it if you want, or leather. That's
But I mean,
awesome. I love that kind of thing.
do you really?
Yeah, I think that's great.
But see, that's a gimmick, though, right? You could customize that phone. That's the selling point to that phone.
I mean, I would again, a gimmick makes it sound like a negative thing. I mean, it's
No, but
it's
I
not
mean,
a gimmick. It's a selling point.
they all
it's
have some
it's
sort of gimmick.
differentiation.
No, but they all. I mean, it's their selling point. Like this has a 13 megapixel camera in the front. That's that selling point to that phone. If I go into a store and I'm going to spend $100 on a phone and I see this and I see the Moto X, for example, and I know that I'm going to use this front-facing camera a lot, I'm going to buy this.
Someday Apple is going to offer materials on their phones, and they're going to have these retail stores that will have some kind of a crazy machine that will be like a photo processing machine at a CVS today. And they'll have reams of material, and you're going to go in and say, I want the one with the mid brown leather on the back, and I want the gold trim on the front. And they're going to be able to apply this stuff like right in the store. And I think the thing that's holding back Motorola right now is that you can't customize a phone in a store. When people go to a store, they want instant gratification. I'm about to spend a lot of money. Like I want to buy something, It's a little unfair to Moto because I think this phone is fantastic. I don't own one, but I mean, I look at this and I think this is such an awesome idea. I just think it's a tough sell for a lot of people because even though they would really want it or might really want it, they're not going to consider it because they don't like doing, buying things that way. They don't like buying things outside of the carrier, even though there are systems to, make that stuff happen. I mean, I think it's just a insecurity / lack of education thing. It's too bad because they could sell millions of those things.
You know what's amazing? Sony, on the other hand, right? They have phones. Surprise, guys.
I know, really.
And
like, really?
They have some really good phones.
Yeah.
Like their Z series, I think it's the Z3. They have I think it's a Z3 and then the compact. The Z3, I think it's a 5.2 and then a 4.6. This phone, every review that I've read is phenomenal. The build quality is great. Everybody's praising this phone. I don't know anybody that has it.
I was going to say, but where do you get one of these?
That's a great question. Where do you buy it?
You buy them. It looks like T-Mobile might be the only way. And if you look at Sony's website, they sell them unlocked, but as everyone probably knows, I mean, unlocked phones are very expensive for a nice one. Like a Xperia Z1 LTE is $500, but it's on sale. It's normally $619.
I mean,
it's expensive.
QNX Monkey says they're all around. They're in Europe. Yeah, I think a lot more of the European markets are buying the Sonys. But, I mean, this is a great example. They have flagship phones. It's just as good as the other guys, most probably. I mean, little things here and there.
20 megapixel camera, by the way.
I don't know how great the camera would be, but
yeah, I don't know either.
It could be phenomenal or it could be but it's still competitive. The entire Android market sucks for the camera.
I know.
I mean, they're not good.
Sony, they just seem to implode all on their own. These things are waterproof too.
One of the greatest stories that was ever told to me about Sony, and then we'll wrap it up. I was working for a Japanese company. I was doing their IT, and the CEO's brother was the VP for Sony, and he I guess his division was in charge of making their MP3 players. Mm-hmm. And
they will be rotting in hell for the rest of eternity.
Yeah.
Please
so we were talking about it, and he goes, you know what was the most ironic thing ever? I go, what? He goes, he bought his kids iPods that year. He didn't even get them. They wanted iPods. He got them iPods, and that's the demise of Sony.
That's
as far
everything
as,
you need to know about this product.
Yeah, so it's sad. I mean, these are pretty decent devices, and who knows? Who knows who's using it?
I feel like Sony is a damaged brand, when it comes to electronics.
Is it because of the lack of decent products, or is it because I don't know. Like Sony TVs.
No, Sony used to. They were a leader in electronics, right? I mean, these were the guys you went to if you wanted to buy a cassette player back in the day. CD player, CD changer, DVD player, Blu-ray player, HD TV, really high quality. You get like a Bravia TV set. The problem is they've just been out commoditized. I mean, this stuff is all made cheaply by other Asian companies at much lower prices. And the same thing just happens to them in every single market. They're lucky they only have one competitor in video games, because if they didn't, it would be happening there too. They're trading on their name. They're kind of like HP. I mean, at one point, the Sony name meant something, and today it's like... And the problem is, every once in a while, they do make something nice. Like this X or Z1, whatever, Xperia Z1, it could be wonderful. But like most Americans, I'll never find out. There's no way to... I'm not going to spend $500 on one of these things.
Yeah.
I don't trust these people. Like, I guess this is a Z2 now, too, by the way. So
Z3.
Z3.
Z4, Z5. I mean, but Sony makes, they still make phenomenal TVs. I don't know anybody that's going and buying a Sony TV. I have not seen one Sony. Why would you?
When you can get a cheap thing at Costco for 1/3 the price, it looks beautiful, by the way. Yeah, why would you ever buy something like that?
It's amazing. It's amazing
it's
how.
Not an investment. You don't buy,
Well, it used to be, right? You bought a TV, you use it for 15 years until it died, and you wouldn't buy the cheap, Korean brand because, those go quickly. You're spending $1,000 on a TV.
They all go quickly, and who cares? Yeah. Why spend a lot of money on something? And by the way, TVs get obsoleted pretty quick. That 42-inch unit that was like, $800 a few years ago is not a good deal anymore. And for that amount of money, you can get like a 60-inch screen that's like half as thin and whatever. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So Sony, I don't know. They were always kind of a premium brand, and it just doesn't. Apple has taken that part of the market.
We should talk about this on the post show, a little bit about brand recognition. Because there's a couple of those brands that kind of faded away, and you're like, what happened to them? They were once the kings of their market, and then all of a sudden now nobody cares for them. But we should wrap it up, Paul. GFQnetwork.com if you miss any portion of the show. Of course, you can go to winsuperside.com. It's also posted there. Guys, if you want to support the show, you could fund our Patreon campaign. We have about $230 in Patreon right now. A lot of you guys are supporting it. We accept anything if you want to fund a nickel, a quarter, a dime, whatever it is, and you get access to the bonus shows. I think next week, Paul, we'll do our phone call show again.
Okay.
If that's okay with you, we will do phone calls.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. Sorry. I'm just waiting. I was like, maybe it's not okay.
It is absolutely.
So you get access to things like that. So patreon.com/whatthetech. Also, if you want to help us out here at the GFQ Network, every time you guys buy something on Amazon, we get a tiny little credit when you use our Amazon link, gfq.co/Amazon, or you could go to our website, click on the Amazon banner, and bookmark it. And whenever you make buying something, we get about 6%, 5%, something like that. And it goes a long way at the end of the month because we're letting that sit on the side and we're redoing the entire studio in a couple months. You can follow me on Twitter at AndrewZarian, at The Rot, at GFQ Network on Twitter. If you're watching live, stay tuned. The post show is coming up. What the Talk is coming up. If you're listening to the podcast, we'll see you all next week.